She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another dame, she solving another case. Cause she litigate with dignity and grace. She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another dame, she solving another case. Cause she litigate with dignity and grace.
Hey Barbie, Chloe, period I, period 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 period. Got my name up in your mouth, you don't know no better. Don't forget I'm from the south, yeah, I got them headers. You watching everything I do, studying all of my moves. Wish you could do what I do. Period I, period period I, period period I, period period I, period period.
Hello, litigators and opinionators. Court is now in session. Guys, hello, Diana. Hello, Mama Zach. Hello, everybody. Everybody, I came here just a few days ago and I discussed that in the Shanquella Robinson case, there was a civil lawsuit that was filed against Cabo 6, FBI, and the State Department. I don't know why I didn't bring this up initially, but there is a jurisdictional issue in this case, specifically as it relates to the forum and where the crime occurred. The crime occurred in Mexico. So tragically today, and basically, let me explain what's going on. There's been a lot of motions filed in this case already. Cabo 6 has filed a motion to dismiss. Winter Donovan, Elise Hyatt, Khalil Cook, they all have retained attorneys, and they have previously filed motions to dismiss, and they filed it for procedural reasons in that they state that this is the wrong jurisdiction in which the lawsuit should be heard, that the crime occurred in Mexico, and that is where the lawsuit should be heard, and that is correct. Usually when someone files a lawsuit, or if a crime is investigated, normally the forum in which, or the location in which the crime occurs, is where they usually will, they're supposed to pursue civil lawsuit. And Salamandra's attorney, Sue Ann, is trying to have the case heard here because she, of course, is an American citizen. But sadly today, the court heard 5 arguments from the FBI and the State Department, and they have ruled to dismiss the charges against FBI, and they have ruled to dismiss the charges against the State Department because this isn't the proper form. And Khalil Cook, Winter Donovan, and Elise Hyatt, they have filed the same claim of a motion to dismiss. Sue Ann is in the process of arguing that the case should be heard here in the United States, considering they're U.S. citizens. The court may likely dismiss for those procedural reasons too. So this is looking pretty sad. They might have to end up going to Mexico to try to get this case heard, which means they more than likely won't have their lawsuit heard in Mexico because Cabo 6 is not about to fly back to Mexico. So this is looking really bad. Let's get into the articles. First, let's talk a little bit about the first article, which is the sad news today that we heard from the federal judge regarding Shanquella Robinson's lawsuit against FBI and State Department. So the federal judge dismisses Shanquella Robinson's family lawsuit against FBI and State Department. This just happened today. I'm so sad that this happened, y'all, but I should have brought this up a few days ago. I didn't really think about that part of it. I figured because they're American citizens, the courts would hear it. But basically, a federal judge dismissed a lawsuit filed by the family of Shanquella Robinson against the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the State Department, court records show. Salamandra Robinson was suing for $100 million in damages in connection with her daughter's death while on a trip to Cabo in 2022. Court filings show that Judge Max Cogburn agreed with all 5 of the government's arguments to dismiss the lawsuit. The lawsuit named the FBI, the U.S. Department of State, the six of Shanquella's travel companions, while referred to as the Cabo Six. The suit was seeking $100 million in damages and accused the federal agencies of negligence in their handling of the investigation into her daughter's death. No arrests have been made in this case. Sue Ann Robinson, the family's attorney, who has no relation to the family, also argued that the 6 people who were present when the assault occurred are all located in the United States and should be required to testify here. She emphasized that the conspiracy and cover-up into Shanquella's death also happened here in the United States. But here's the issue. The issue is, you guys, is that this occurred in Mexico. So that's the proper jurisdiction, unfortunately. But let's hear this.
Now to breaking news. A civil lawsuit filed by the mother of Shanquella Robinson against the State Department and FBI has now been dismissed. Salamandra Robinson was suing for $100 million in damages over claims that investigators were negligent in their probe. You'll recall that Shanquella Robinson died while on a trip to Cabo back in 2022. No arrests have been made, at least at this time.
So if you guys are new, hi, Ellen. The whole case hasn't been dismissed just yet, but it has been dismissed as it pertains to the FBI and the State Department due to jurisdictional issues. That the case, basically the State Department and FBI argued that the crime occurred in Mexico and therefore that's the proper jurisdiction. Those authorities should be held reliable and responsible for this, and that was mainly their argument, and the court agreed with them. The convenient forum would be where all 6 individuals who were present in the room when the crime occurred, for them to be heard and give their testimony and have their day in court here, she added. That's what the judge said. Just for some background, just in case people who don't know about this story, Shanquella Robinson, she was a 25-year-old Charlotte woman. She died in October 2022 while vacationing in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, with 6 acquaintances, now known as the Cabo Six. Her death certificate cited a severe spinal cord injury and broken neck. The case gained national attention after a video allegedly showed Robinson being attacked in a viral social media video. They had a video that went viral. The whole world saw the video, and there's still no arrest since October 29. What kind of system is this? Salamandra told reporters last year. And this is so sad. I feel sad for this mother who has been fighting for her daughter. And unfortunately, there is no justice that is seeming to occur due to the jurisdictional issues. Now, I do want to give a shout out to our boy NC Beats, because he did do an article on this, and he basically said in his article today, a federal judge has dismissed the lawsuit filed by the family of Shanquella Robinson, the 25-year-old woman who tragically died during a group trip in Cabo Lucas in October 2022 against the FBI and the State Department, siding with the government in the high-profile civil suit. Filed by Robinson's family earlier this year, the lawsuit alleged that the U.S. government failed to investigate or intervene properly after Shanquella was brutally beaten and left for dead. A viral video footage online showed the outrage beating. Let's see what he says. On Friday, in a new court filing, Judge Max Cogburn agreed with all 5 of the government's arguments to dismiss the suit against the FBI. After the departments argued that the United States was not the proper forum for the case, Mexico was, since that is where the incident occurred. However, the judge has not yet ruled on whether to dismiss the family's wrongful death and negligence claims against Cabo Six, the group of so-called friends who traveled with Shanquella. Now, here's what's going on. They have already, the Shanquella's family had already served the other Cabo 6. The only person that they hadn't served was Imani Green, and they just recently served her, and she did not have an attorney. And the reason why they hadn't served her before in this lawsuit is because they couldn't find her because she changed her name to Imani Green. But they had already served the other Cabo 6. And so during this time frame, they too had filed motions to dismiss. There's four of the Cabo 6 who have filed motions to dismiss. So let's read this article. Khalil Cook has filed a motion to dismiss, and let's hear his argument for why he filed a motion to dismiss. So another Cabo 6 travel mate asked for Shanquella Robinson lawsuit to be dismissed. This was back in March of this year, guys. A fourth person who was on the trip with Shanquella Robinson when she died, has filed a motion in federal court seeking the Robinson family lawsuit being dismissed. An attorney representing Khalil Cook filed the motion in federal court on Friday. In October 2022, that they keep repeating this part. Okay, like the dismissal request by Elise Hyatt and Winter Donovan, Cook's argument for dismissal is that he is a bystander and there is no allegation that defendant Cook participated in the fight or touched anyone. Cook's dismissal request also says the lawsuit could be heard in Mexico since a substantial part of the plaintiff's claims occurred there. Numerous important witnesses reside in Mexico who possess relevant information regarding plaintiff's claims and Mr. Cook's defenses to those claims. Those witnesses include medical personnel who treated Ms. Robinson and were in the hospital prior to and shortly after her death. Hotel personnel may also have personally relevant information, the court document said. Moreover, critical witnesses include Mexican law enforcement who responded to the scene, as well as the coroner's office who forensically examined Ms. Robinson's body and opined on the cause of her death. All of these witnesses would likely be an essential part of any trial of this action. No one is facing criminal charges over Robinson's death. In addition to Cook, Hyatt, and Donovan, Malik Dyer is seeking the lawsuit dismissed. Two other travel mates, including the person who allegedly attacked Robinson, have not yet responded. The travel group was later dubbed the Cabo 6. A judge will determine the lawsuit at a later date. So as you guys can see, Khalil Cook, Elise Hyatt, Winter Donovan, and Malik Dyer have all filed motions to dismiss. And I expect for Imani Green, who is Dejanay, she too will be filing a motion to dismiss once she retains an attorney. She was the last of the Cabo 6 to be served because the attorneys weren't able to find her due to her name change. So let's read this one, this article here that explains the other Cabo 6 arguments. And they are arguing that all the pertinent witnesses in this case basically are in Mexico, and the proper jurisdiction where the crime occurred is in Mexico. And I assume the judge, these are very strong arguments, unfortunately, as much as I want to see these people go down. Unfortunately, the procedural arguments and the material arguments about the location of the witnesses might be a reason why the judge ultimately dismisses this case, as sad as it is. And unfortunately, the Cabo 6 are not going to go back to Mexico. So they're not, more than likely not going to hear it in Mexico. So this case is probably going to not be resolved. It's so sad, guys. My heart is so broke, but I have to be real with the reality of things. It would be a miracle if this judge decides not to dismiss it. But let's go ahead and hear what the other Cabo 6 were saying. Shanquella Robinson's attorney asked to keep the case in Sorry, I'm this late tonight, guys. It's like 1 o'clock here. Shanquella Robinson's attorney asked the judge to keep case in U.S. So this was back in March as well. Attorneys for Shanquella Robinson's family say their lawsuit should stay in the Western District of North Carolina. The attorneys for defendants Elise Hyatt and Winter Donovan are asking the federal judge to dismiss the case because of an improper venue. Hyatt and Donovan argue the case should be heard in Mexico since the alleged crimes occurred there. And on Monday, Robinson's family's attorney responded in federal court saying this is a suit by an American plaintiff against American defendants. And while the conduct may have started in a foreign country, it continued on American soil. So she's basically saying the crime continued in America's soil when they came and conspired here. However, I'm going to show you another article that we'll get into a little later, where FBI basically released additional documentation from their evidentiary records, which shows that they couldn't find anything on the Cabo 6's phones that were incriminating, meaning they didn't find any text messages where they were conspiring, saying, anything about how she died or she was murdered. They more so was talking sadly about the fact that she died. So that's going to be a problem. This case is looking more and more sad as we go. But anyways, on Monday, Robinson's family's attorney responded in federal court saying this is a lawsuit by an American plaintiff against American defendants. And while the conduct may have started in a foreign country, it continued on American soil. The judge will make a decision in the coming months. Robinson died mysteriously in 2022 while on a trip to Cabo with Hyatt, Donovan, and 4 others. Robinson's family is suing, alleging wrongful death. Oh, this is such a tragic story, guys. So it's looking like Cabo 6 minus Imani Green has already filed motions to dismiss. The court has continued that matter to hear that on another date, but unfortunately, it looks like they'd already dismissed FBI and State Department, and that they're probably going to follow suit with dismissing the other ones, it looks like. But we'll see. But it's not looking good based on venue issues. But let's read this other article here. FBI files shed some light on Shanquella Robinson investigation. The FBI is starting to release files in response to multiple Freedom of Information Act requests by Channel 9, dating back to 2023. The FBI released 2 parts of documents related to the Shanquella Robinson investigation. The agency is continuing to search for responsive records, and more may be released in the coming months. Shanquella Robinson went to Cabo. Okay, they're going to repeat the same story over, guys. We already know about that part. If you guys have known the story, you know that. No files were charged. About a month after she died, FBI records showed they spoke to a person whose name was redacted from the file, who's referenced that fight and said they aren't sure what happened. But the unknown person claimed Robinson's friends said she was drinking and hit her head on the toilet. The documents say the person also told investigators they saw pictures of Robinson's body and said there are bruises on her and she looks like she was stomped on. Wow, guys. I didn't know that part. She looked like she was stomped on. The person also believed there were cameras in the house. Wow. So why didn't they? Okay, if there's cameras in the house, why didn't they take evidence of that? And Sue Ann Robinson, the attorney for Salamandra, the mother of Robinson, she went down to Mexico. So I don't know why she didn't gather the video footage from the hotel. That is a huge issue. That they would have got that video footage, that would be strong evidence for the FBI. But anyways, let's continue. The person also believed they said they believe cameras were in the house. A lot of the information is being protected by FBI and was redacted in these files. The interviews includes with people that includes interviews with people who said they had information about the case and social media accounts. So they're redacting all the witnesses. This is interesting. So they redacted social media accounts associated with her travel mates. The FBI kept track of all of their social media accounts from a Dropbox to Twitter. So they had been watching all their social media accounts as well. The FBI file says agents searched Robinson's phone. What they found in the phone is redacted. The files also state that in November 2022, authorities in Mexico told the FBI they needed to interview someone on the trip so that they could get a temporary detention order. Mexican prosecutors eventually would issue an arrest warrant, but no one was ever extracted. And the reason for that was because the FBI had to do their own investigation and they had to find sufficient evidence to determine there was a crime. And since they were unable to do that due to the significant failure of the Mexican authorities to investigate this case, the failure of the autopsy, which was a partial autopsy, which was the coroner failed to do a full autopsy on her body. and they failed to do a proper examination of the injuries that she had in terms of her neck. That is what caused the failure of this case. It was all on Mexico, who dropped the ball, and basically it led to FBI being unable to find sufficient evidence. And because they weren't able to find sufficient evidence, they were unable to then pick up the Cabo 6 and basically ship them back to Mexico. That's why all this stuff happens. It's all Mexico's fault, basically. When it all comes down to it, Mexico screwed up. And the sad part is, it's a venue issue because it's happened in Mexico. So because of procedural reasons, it's looking like this case will probably ultimately be dismissed. I'm hoping somehow there's a miracle as it relates to Cabo 6, but they've already dismissed it from the FBI and the Department of State. So I don't see why they wouldn't follow suit on the other Cabo 6, but we shall see. Anyways, let's continue on. The former U.S. Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina, Dina King, previously said her office will continue to review new information that is brought to their attention about the case. 3 of Robinson's travel mates have asked for the lawsuit to be dismissed. A federal judge will make that determination in the future. So this was Sue Ann here, and this is Salamandra, and I feel so sad for Salamandra. This woman has fought tooth and nail for the justice of her child, and she has lived in misery the past 3 years. And to see every door being closed on her continually breaks my heart. The FBI shut the door on her in terms of justice. The State Department shut the door on her in terms of justice. The first freaking country that shut the door in the first place was Mexico, when they failed this family in their improper investigation. And we talked about this years ago when this first started. I told you guys that we went over the history of the Mexico judicial system and how poorly they investigate cases, how poorly cases are prosecuted there, how poorly people are not properly punished there. And we went over that full history when I first went over this story. And that is turning out to be the biggest reason why this case has fallen through the cracks. And it's just breaking my heart. I don't think this video is going to play. I try to play all these videos and they don't play. Yeah, so it looks like there's something wrong with the videos on here. Or this website here from North Carolina. But yeah, guys, it looks like I said, Elise Hyatt, Winter Donovan, Khalil Cook, and Malik Dyer have all filed motions to dismiss. I haven't heard anything about what Nazir has done, and Imani Green, which is now Dejanay, she was just served recently. So it's unclear what Nazir has done in this case, or has he been served yet? He may not even have been served yet. Some of these people are in hiding. That's why they couldn't find Diajane, whatever her name is, or Imani Green now, because she was in hiding. So it looks like they're probably still searching for Nazir. Judge dismisses. Okay, let's see if they talk about Nazir. Yeah, they have not mentioned Nazir yet. This is so sad, you guys. Oh gosh, guys. But yeah, this is what happens in court. The procedural reason, one of the biggest foundational things that we have to know about lawsuits is there has to be proper venue, the proper jurisdiction in which the crime occurred. But this is just like so tragic because these are American citizens. The problem too is they weren't able to find evidence as it pertains to the crime carrying on here because the FBI records don't really show that. They don't. Their FBI records did not find any actual conspiracy being done here in the U.S. to hide evidence. So, guys, my heart is so sad. Like this case completely turned left very quickly. We just talked about this case a few days ago, and then shortly thereafter, today, the court makes this very drastic, sad turnout. It's just so sad, guys. What do you guys think about this? Like, my heart is so broke. This young lady deserves justice, and it's like, because this was done in a different country, which is why I've been covering so many stories about be careful when you go to different countries, because if a tragedy happens there, their laws, their criminal system there, their investigations are not as top tier as it is in the US, unfortunately. And I wouldn't say even Americans' judicial system is top tier. I wouldn't say all that, but I would say it's a lot better than some of these other countries for sure. Let's see what else this article says about the evidence that was released. It says federal FBI released dozens of new pages inside the Shanquella Robinson investigation file. While many of them are redacted, some of them provide new details about how the FBI tried to find out what happened to the Charlotte woman whose mysterious death gained a worldwide attention. Shanquella Robinson went on the trip. Okay, they want to repeat that again, y'all. They always repeat it. In January 2023, there was a press conference that was held by Daniel de la Rosa Aña, the Attorney General of Baja California Sur. In the press conference, he said the case was still under investigation. One of the newly released documents by the FBI was a letter to his office. It was sent the day of the press conference. So it looks like FBI sent a letter to the Mexico Attorney General. And we really went over the details of that Attorney General. They sent a letter to him the day after he did that press conference. And they asked him 11 questions, including who owns the villa. And they also asked, were they interviewed? So they were trying to, and let me just tell you, there's different types of standards in how different countries investigate crime. Their burdens of proof are different, and the quality of proof that is needed to meet their burdens in different countries. So Mexico may have a lower burden of proof, a lower standard of evidence, and a lower investigation quality than America's standard. So the evidence that they may have provided to the FBI was insufficient as it relates to the United States burden of proof and standard of evidence that they would present in a trial. And that's the problem in this case, is the different level and quality of evidence in these different countries that is causing the clash, and which is causing the insufficiency determination in America, because what the investigation that was done in Mexico was considered poor quality investigation as it pertains to how America and the FBI in America and the criminal authorities would conduct in America. So that's the problem here in this case. FBI reached out to the Attorney General. They asked questions about who owned the villa. Were they interviewed? Are there any videos or images from the hotel security cameras that include Robinson or people associated with her? And is there any report available for the ambulance crew? And a response to these questions was not included in the new Robinson papers, but it's possible it will be in future batches. So it seems like FBI is hiding information that they did obtain from this Mexican Attorney General. The FBI released this document saying they downloaded the contents of someone's phone on the trip. The document said they found no evidence. Here it is, guys. The document said they found no evidence that revealed any information on the cause of death, just a few comments expressing distress over the death. So here's the issue with Sue Ann's argument. Her argument is that they continue to conspire to conceal the murder in America. But when FBI subpoenaed their phones, they weren't able to find such a conspiracy. So the Cabo Six weren't on the phone talking about, oh my God, we killed her. How are we going to hide this? Like, should we do? They never did talk like that. They just were like, oh my God, I'm so sad she died, basically. So it's not looking like Sue Ann can provide any evidence to prove that there's actually a crime that occurred here, or meaning the crime would have been conspiracy to conceal a death or a murder. They can't, the FBI wasn't able to find that. Again, let's read this part that says the document that the FBI provided said they found no evidence that revealed any information on the cause of death. Just a few comments expressing distress over the death. That's what they found in Cabo Six's phone. The person seen hitting Shanquella in the video was identified as Dejanay Jackson, also known by her new name, Imani Green. She has since changed her name to Imani Green. Last week, she acknowledged the lawsuit against her and her travel mates for the first time. She asked a judge for more time to respond to it so she could hire an attorney. 4 of the travel mates are asking the judge to dismiss the case. They argued the U.S. is an improper venue for the trial, and the arguments would be more appropriate in Mexico. A judge will decide whether to dismiss the case or let it stand at a later date. So let's just pray that there's some miracle, guys, but it's not looking too good. It looks like I don't think they've served Nazir just yet. I haven't found any information on his lawsuit, so he's probably in hiding and they haven't found him. It looks like he didn't really have much stable home. He was kind of floating around, so it probably was hard to find him because you remember the Cabo Six fled their original homes when this happened, so they were in hiding. So they were able to find 4 of the Cabo Six at the time. All of them have since filed motions to dismiss. I'm going to predict that Imani Green, which is Dejanay, once she retains her attorney, she will too be filing a motion to dismiss with the same arguments that the other 4 made. And right now, it's probably the only person that they're still trying to serve is Nazir. So guys, this case is looking more and more grim. It's looking more and more sad. It's probably looking like at the end of this, there probably won't be any legal justice. And this is a huge lesson that we can learn in this case. The big lesson we can learn in this case is be careful who you travel with. And if you die in another country for any reason, your case will probably go unresolved. A lot of these countries have very poor quality judicial systems. They're poor quality as it relates to their investigations, to their medical industries. It's just, especially certain countries, as you compare it to the American burden of proof and how they prosecute. And I would say those countries would think our way of investigating is poor quality to them, because different countries have different ways of how they process certain cases. And Mexico has a long history of improper criminal investigations, improper punishment as it relates to crimes that are committed in their country. We went over this before, especially as it relates to femicide. And Mexico dropped the ball. They dropped the ball on all levels as it relates to this case. And unfortunately, honestly, guys, that was how they prosecute these cases, as sad as it is, though. Basically what I'm trying to say is this outcome was inevitable. And I'm sorry to be, as much as I want justice for Shanquella, because this case means as much to me, I have to be honest as an attorney and tell you the truth. This case was inevitable just because of where it happened at. The fact that it happened in Mexico and even in any other country, we could say any other country, Jamaica, it could happen in Jamaica. This case would have turned out the same way because America has a different way of prosecuting cases as opposed to these other countries. And Mexico improperly conducted the autopsy, but in their country, the way they did a partial autopsy, that may be proper in how they do it there. The way we're interpreting it in America is going to always be different because we have a different standard in how we conduct autopsies here, how we analyze evidence here, and how our officers retain and obtain evidence in certain judicial cases, and the level of burden of proof in analyzing cases here. It's completely different than how Mexico is. So I'm saying, from my perspective, looking at it as an American and looking at it from our level, Mexico is going to be interpreted no matter what as having an improper course of action because we have a different way of doing it here in America. But if it was in Mexico, Mexico would say they did everything right because that's how they conduct things. Their procedure there is probably to do partial autopsies there. Their normal procedure there is probably to embalm a person who has had a partial autopsy. That's how they do it there in Mexico, whereas in America, that's not how we would do it. Our coroner would conduct a full autopsy if there was a crime or a suspected homicide. They would do a full, complete autopsy here in America, and they wouldn't embalm the body afterwards unless there was a request by the parents. So Mexico, when they did it and followed their course of action and they embalmed the body and sent it here in America, the body was already compromised when FBI got it. The evidence, they couldn't find causation because they had an embalmed body. They couldn't conduct a full autopsy. They couldn't do any toxicology test. They couldn't do toxicology tests to refute the Cabo 6's argument. They had to conduct that toxicology test to refute what they were saying because it wouldn't fly in court under the burden of proof in the United States, not in California, but in the United States, which is beyond beyond reasonable doubt. Not all reasonable doubt. That's an improper burden of proof. Beyond reasonable doubt. Sorry, guys, it's 2:00 in the morning. I'm tired over here. So beyond reasonable doubt. Okay. So basically, because they couldn't refute the causation argument that she died of alcohol poisoning or being overly intoxicated, like the Cabo 6 was arguing, a jury would have likely found not guilty either way, because they would have sided with Cabo 6 because the prosecution wouldn't be able to refute it without conducting a toxicology test. And Mexico failed to do that over there. So when the body was brought here back embalmed, FBI wasn't able to do that. And they didn't find that her neck was basically severed off like the way, or detached as the way Mexico said they did it, because Mexico didn't even fully analyze her body, basically. They didn't do a full proper test. They just very poorly looked at her body, basically, and just made a guess analysis. They looked at her body and they didn't even fully do a full analysis on her neck. They just made assumptions, basically. And they didn't even do any toxicology tests. So Mexico, and their poor quality of how they analyze evidence, failed this case. But like I said, that would have been an inevitable result because that is their proper way of doing things in Mexico. They, in their perspective, is we did everything right. That's how we process things here, because that is our procedure. That's our proper procedure there in Mexico. Whereas in America, we have a whole different standard here. So what I'm saying is you got to be careful when you go to these different countries. If you pass away in other countries, more than likely this will be the end result. There won't be any justice, as sad as it is. There won't be proper investigation, as sad as it is. Now, this is kind of interesting because the reason, let me see, there was a case where there was a girl with her boyfriend. She was a young girl, a teenager, and she went with her mom to another country and unalived her mom, her and her boyfriend, and then they were able to sue and prosecute here. That case is distinguishable because in that instance, they actually conspired to kill her here in America first. There was actually text messages that proved the connection here in America, and the plan was conducted here with her and her boyfriend here. And then when they went there, they basically executed what they was planning here in America. So that case was distinguishable because they actually had proof that the original plan to unalive that woman was here in America. And then they went and did it in the country that they ultimately did it in, which gave the United States that nexus to be able to prove it and then therefore do that. And they didn't have causation issues in that situation because it was very clear that she was murdered. I mean, the woman was severed, and yeah, if you guys know the case I'm talking about, it was very clear that her causation was because of what they did, and they had admitted to it in text messages, and the FBI and all of them were able to connect it to America. So that case is completely distinguishable from this case, whereas they have no evidence. The FBI released at least some of those documents, and they weren't able to find any text messages or any type of evidence that connect the crime to the United States. So guys, this is looking more and more sad. I've seen somebody on YouTube a few days ago, and she reported that basically that they have already arrested Imani Green and they're sending her back to Mexico. Guys, that's fake news. So be careful with the information you're getting out there. Some people out there are reporting fake news, and she's a bigger YouTuber, but that is not true. Imani Green or Dejanay has not been picked up and not been sent to Mexico. So I wanted to make sure everybody knows that, so they're not giving false information. But yeah, Coach B, this is so sad. My heart is so broke. Like Coach B says, her story ended so tragically, and I'm so just livid that this case is not getting justice. That they dropped the ball. They were able to get away with murder. And what really scares me about this, guys, is that this can end up being an incentive for other people to do crimes like this. That's why we have to be more cautious about the people we travel with, because this gives an incentive with how to get away with murder. You can just make sure you don't message people about a conspiracy on a phone or talk about it on any electrical social media devices. Just talk about it maybe, verbally, and then you can travel to these other countries, unalive someone, and then and get away with it. And just do what they did. Basically, they showed the world how to get away with murder. And it's very sad that there's no accountability. There's no responsibility in this. And I'm not going to get too sad right now because we're waiting for the judge to decide the other cases. But just looking at how they decided the FBI and the State Department, it's not looking good for the other cases against Cabo 6. Because of the FBI didn't provide any evidence to connect their conspiracy or the crime being conducted or planned, at least planned here. Whereas that in that other case that I talked about with the teenage girl, her and her boyfriend planned the murder of her mother in America first. That wasn't the case in this situation, or at least there's no actual evidence of it being done. Yeah, Ellen, it is very scary. She said, I wonder if there are any extra things one can do when traveling to mitigate this. You just got to know, number one, who you're traveling with. Do very thorough research about the places you're going. Look at the travel advisories. Get a travel guide that you can trust, or a travel person that can take you around that you can trust. There's a lot of travel agents out there that can help you. But you got to really know the person that you're traveling with. And I mean, know them inside and out. See, Shanquella was the last person to be invited to this trip. And they didn't want her there. The only reason why they invited her last minute was because the friend that they really wanted to go couldn't show up. In those type of situations, I probably would be hesitant to go. And I think Shanquella felt hesitant to go, but she ignored her intuition and went anyway. So you got to listen to your gut. You got to really know these people you're going with, and just learn from this story is that, you take very huge risk when you travel out of this country, and there's usually not much the country can really do, or not much form of justice that usually ultimately happens in these tragedies. And this story really scares me because of how they literally got away with murder. They literally got away with it. And that is devastating to me. And people have gone on with their life, and no one has continued to speak out about this. I know a lot of the YouTubers are, but I mean, the public has just forgotten about the story. And that's the sad part about it. Ellen says, one of the most brutal M's, she deserves justice. This is a sad situation, but God can still serve justice, hopefully. I hope so, some other way. I do hope so, Ellen, I'm praying, but it's not looking good, girl. I wish. Maybe they're going to get their justice through some type of karma, Let's hope so. Ellen says, my own of justice is painting a gorgeous portrait of Shanquella and to refer to her Miss Green as Miss Mayonnaise. Exactly, girl. Yes. We could, like you said, I love that, Ellen, that we can remember her by creating a portrait of her, speaking at her story, sharing her story with other people. Oh, God. Yes, Betty, they did call it a femicide. You are 100% correct on that. They did. And that is a crime that they do refer to in Mexico because of the significant amount of crimes against women in Mexico because they are women. And so they did call this crime a femicide because they felt that she was brutally beaten because she was a woman. So Betty says, wasn't there 2 tapes out of her getting unalived? Yes, there was at least one video that I've seen. But there were multiple videos about it, but I only seen one of them. From what I heard, there was other videos. Ellen says they need to make a movie, and they do. I agree with Ellen. They need to make a movie of Shanquella, a goddess, and the Cabo 6 evil. We got to get some other kind of justice in this matter, I guess. You know what? Yeah, Ellen, I agree with you. I think the awareness of her story, the exposure of her story, exposed them all over the world. I do think that they should do a movie like Ellen said, to really document this story so the whole world can hear it. You know how they do Netflix stories about some of these tragedies? They did a Netflix story about young lady that was murdered. Gabby. Yeah, you remember Gabby? She was murdered by her boyfriend, and they did a Netflix story about it. I feel like they need to do a Netflix story about this. I mean, yeah, do a movie, but I want them to do a Netflix story because I want them to capture the real photographs, the real identities, the real names, the real background of the Cabo Six. Because when you put their faces all over, so like all over Netflix, because everybody watches Netflix, y'all. It's gonna go viral on Netflix, 100%. A lot more people will see it on Netflix, and they will see their actual faces. They will have their actual names, so that everywhere these people go, people will know who they are. Just like Casey Anthony, she got away with murder, but she really can't go anywhere around this country without people identifying her and hackling her. So I feel like there was justice in that case because she has no peace of mind. Everywhere Casey Anthony goes, that woman is tormented by people who don't like her, who despise her, who hate her. I mean, social media. So I feel like that's the way we can get justice, is through doing a documentary about her story, doing a TMZ story, doing a Netflix, make her story worldwide known. And so no matter, and plaster the pictures of Cabo Six in the Netflix documentary and everywhere, so that these people cannot go anywhere without them seeing her face. They need to do a dateline on this. They need to do a 48 hours. I don't know why they haven't done this. I'm really not understanding. And it's probably because they haven't been charged with a crime. So the reason why since they weren't charged with a crime, I guess a lot of these like Netflix and these agencies are they're reluctant to do a story on this because they don't want to have any legalities, because basically Cabo Six can sue them for defamation of character and say we were never charged with a crime, basically. So I think that's why Netflix Dateline in 48 hours does not want to touch this story. So I think we want to go back to the whole roundabout story with what Ellen said. It might have to end up resulting to like a movie or something, because a real documentary, I think a lot of these agencies are reluctant to do that because of the fact that they weren't actually charged with anything. Whereas in these other cases with Gabby, he wasn't charged, but he admitted to doing it. He unalived himself, and he wrote a letter before he unalived himself, admitting to the crime. And the other people who have been charged with these crimes, they were charged and convicted with crimes. So I think that's why a lot of these media and other agencies have been reluctant to touch this, because they were never charged with the crime in America. So guys, it's looking more bad if I even mention and talk about it. Yes, Ellen. Ellen was like, yeah, when you said partial autopsy, I was like, say what? Yes, girl, they did a partial autopsy. And in America, that's improper. In America, we're saying you're supposed to do a full autopsy. That is the proper form of conduct in America, right? Well, in Mexico, it might be a proper form of conduct in Mexico for them to do partial autopsies. It may be their proper procedure to embalm a body when it's not that proper course of action here in America. Countries do things differently, which is why we can learn a lot from this, that you have to be careful. You have to do thorough research when you travel out of these countries, and you have to understand the risk associated with it. And make sure you research those travel advisories. If they're saying don't go to a certain country, don't go. Even if it's in that kind of yellow warning type, I wouldn't even go if it's in the warning, because people have been unalived there in the warnings. And most of these people who are unalived in these other countries, no one ever finds out what happens. Their bodies go missing. A lot of the investigations there, they don't even really do an investigation because they want to hide the whole investigation, because they want more people to come to their countries. So they don't want to reveal the truth of what happened to these people, that they were robbed or unalived by someone or kidnapped or whatever. So we can learn a lot from this, but I'm sad because I'm so angry that this happened to this girl. And they literally got away with murder, and they have literally taught the world how to get away with murder. They taught the world. And it is very sad because other people are going to get incentives to do the same thing. You're going to find people taking people they don't like or their people they love or their spouse to these other countries, unaliving them and making it look like, oh, she got drunk. Oh, she just disappeared. I don't know where she went. I had nothing to do with that. And you know what? I think this also has to do with the fact that they're Black. I have to be very real with you. I feel like it has to do with the color of their skin. It's as sad as it is. I'm so sorry to be honest with you guys. But as you guys have seen, a lot of African American who have died in this country, the judicial system has failed them. They don't really do proper investigations on some of these cases. As sad as it is, I'm so sorry to be blunt as it is, but we know that to be one of the systematic failures of our judicial system. As sad as it is, it can happen to our beautiful Hispanic family members or Asian, you never know, but I've seen this happen a lot with the African American community. And you think they really care about an African American woman who went to another country and got unalived? I mean, as sad as it is, they don't care. So I'm sad, y'all. I'm sad. I have to be blunt with this one, but I hope to God there's going to be some way that Salamandra, I don't want Salamandra to die with a broken heart. I don't want Shanquella Robinson's sister to die of a broken heart. I don't want her father to die of a broken heart. I'm really praying for justice. Ellen says, it's true. This is what happens on reservations. Criminals know that it's easier to get away with crimes there. She's so right. Ellen is so right. So y'all just pray for this case. I don't know what else to do, but I'll keep looking up more results. I'm not sure why it's taking so long for them to decide on the other Cabo 4 who have filed their motions to dismiss, but I will come back. Yeah, Betty said, I always thought it had something to do with her being Black. Yeah, I'm thinking that too, because if you look at some of these other cases that happened recently, there was a case that went viral. A young lady went to another country and she was unalived by her, I guess this another American. And those American authorities was on that man. They were interrogating him and all kinds of stuff. They would not let up on him. And I'm like, well, why y'all don't really care about this Shanquella Robinson case? Because that other case, I don't know if you guys heard that recent case with that girl. She went to I don't know what country it was, but she went to another country. She was with one of her guys there. He was an American citizen as well. And apparently they went to some type of beach or something, and she ended up have drowned. He claimed she drowned, that she had went in the water and drowned. But y'all know that is not what happened. Y'all know that's not what happened. That man unalived her, in my humble opinion. But I'm just saying, you see how much media covers that guy. It seemed like the authorities were really on him, interrogating him left and right. Like they was on him. I mean, not that there was justice in that case, because they basically claimed she drowned, but you could just see the urgency in those authorities to find out more in that case. It just felt like there was more urgency. Whereas this one just seemed like there wasn't much of that enthusiasm. The FBI didn't really give me that vibe that they were really enthusiastic. They didn't really push as hard as they should have, was what I'm trying to say. They didn't go forward and really hammering and interrogating the Cabo 6 like they did with that man who took the girl, I guess, to the beach or whatever and claimed that she had drowned. I think he did something to her, but that's my opinion. Do y'all know what case I'm talking about? I don't know if y'all know. I'm talking about a case y'all probably don't know. Okay, Ellen has said that Mexico notoriously racist against Black Americans too, apparently. Really, Ellen? You have to educate me on that, girl, because I've never been to Mexico. So I didn't know that. What, Ellen? Really? That is so sad. You know what, Ellen? I don't know if you were on my last slide. Yeah, I think you were. And remember we were reading that report and how they were saying that the Dejanay looked like a man, and she was very manly, and they portrayed Shanquella as being unfriendly. I feel like, was that really how Shanquella was acting, or was it their preconceived racial perceptions of Black people, because sometimes people who are non-Black will have this preconceived perception of how they think Black people will be. They will automatically implicate a Black woman as being an angry Black woman, even if she's not. Maybe she's just quiet because she's a reserved, shy person, but because they have this already preconceived perception of a Black person, that they automatically will paint this person to be what they think that person's supposed to be. You know what I mean? So when I was reading some of these reports, I was starting to think, well, were they really acting this way? Or is it because they have this already preconceived negative perception of a Black woman being aggressive, manly, harsh, hard-like type personality, more on the aggressive side? I don't know. I have kind of questions about that, the way that they were describing the Shanquella and the others, even though I don't like the Cabo 6 and I'm not defending them, but I just kind of was wondering, it just felt like kind of weird. I don't know. But Ellen is educating me on that. And one thing I got to give shout out to Ellen. Ellen has been my girl from day one. She's the one that told me about StreamYard, y'all. So shout out to Ellen. She put me up on game. She is the reason why I have StreamYard. So I love her for her kindness to me. She could have just roasted on me. I'm always going to give shout out to you, Ellen, no matter what, girl. But she could have roasted on my platform, because I had like I was using my phone, y'all. It was so ghetto. Because I wasn't trying to be a YouTuber. I never intended to be a YouTuber. I was just sad about what happened to my beautiful role model, Chesley Chris. And I wasn't planning to like ever do stories or anything. I just was online sad about her. And then that ended up going viral. And then, so I was just using my phone. And then Ellen, one time she was on my channel and she was like, you could really elevate your platform if you had StreamYard. And I was like, what is that? But she was just so sweet about it. Other people that was on my live were so mean and they were making fun of me. It was so bad. But Ellen was like so sweet about it. And I just like cling to her. I was like, oh my gosh, she's so sweet. And when you're kind and you correct somebody in love, it makes them want to hear you. But when you're being mean and bashing someone, they'll be defensive. So I like to use her as an example because I feel like she's a good example of how to correct someone in love and in a kind way. And I think we should be that way in our society. And I'm totally getting off topic about our beautiful Shanquella, so sorry, but I'm about to end this live. But I just wanted to give her a shout out to like as a good example of how to be kind to people in this world. So I love you, Ellen, forever, girl. That's my moderator. She's going to be my moderator for life. And I love my Betty. Betty, shout out to Betty. Betty has been there from day one. Love you, girl. I'm so glad you're still here. Diana Ortiz, all my family. So sorry, guys, to go off on a tangent there, but I do want to always show that I appreciate you guys. You guys are like my family, not just YouTube, but you guys are my family. And I always appreciate you. And I'm giving you a virtual hug. Thank you for being here tonight. I will definitely let you know what happens with the Cabo 6 in terms of this lawsuits. It's just looking sad, but I love you guys. You guys are my family for life. And take care. Have a lovely night. Like, comment, and subscribe.
She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another day and she solving another case, cause she litigate with dignity and grace. She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another day and she solving another case, cause she